Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday Preview. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by co-host Manny Lagos. Manny, how are you doing today?
Doing well, thank you. Doing very well.
Good, good. And this week we are joined by special guest from the Star Tribune, Jon Marthaler. John, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. I'm sitting, they put me in a windowless office in here, so I think if I record the podcast, they let me out.
Well, maybe. They didn't tell us that, so
Depends on how you do.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. The power wasn't working in the building earlier today, so who knows whether they'll be lighting the whole time.
Right.
That's just a preview for what's going to happen later if you say something negative.
That's right. Exactly. It was a warning.
So. Yeah. All right, so let's jump into it. Plenty to discuss. Let's jump into our general discussion about the league play this weekend. And I know a lot of non-Miami fans get sick of the vast amount of Lionel Messi talk, but when a guy has 5 assists in 45 minutes, it's hard not to lead off the discussion with that. And the sheer impressive performance that Lionel Messi put up this weekend in that game against the Red Bulls, in a game that we all thought going in, this is going to be a really tightly contested affair between these two, but it just turned into a complete just Lionel Messi and ex-Barcelona show in Miami this weekend. Manny.
Oh yeah, if you're starting with me, I don't know if you're gonna go. Yeah, I mean, listen, we are watching the greatest player of all time. And we're watching him being fit and hungry. He's inspiring one of the best goal scorers of all time to play hard and be hungry. And ultimately, he is responding to adversity and really stepping up in this league. And so for me, the assists were amazing. You know, there's 2 or 3 of them that were world class in terms of just the execution. So I just think it's getting down 1-0 against the Red Bulls, who are a good, organized, structured team, and then just open them up the way they did. It is truly, watching greatness on the field and watching him respond to the adversity of a soccer game.
John?
Yeah, it's funny that I feel a little surprised in how good Messi has been in MLS. And I don't know why, because he was great in La Liga, then he went to France and he was great there. He went to the World Cup and basically beat France single-handed in the World Cup final. I don't know why there was ever a question that he would come to MLS and be like, wow, this guy's really good. As it turns out, the best player in soccer history is also really good when he's playing in Harrison, New Jersey. So I did think it was funny that he set the record at the same time. He set the record for assists in one game and in one half.
Oh,
that doesn't happen all the time.
No. I will say to your point, John, I want to see how the season plays out, both for him and Miami. Obviously they've done a good job of getting some young guys around him, and they have, obviously he's got Busquets and Alba as long with Sarr, so they've got this older mix with young, and to see how that plays out for 34 games, I'm intrigued. I still am not going to say, oh, they're going to run through the league, only because the grind of the league, the grind of the 3 different time changes, the 4 or 5 different climates that we play in, I'm still want to see if Messi can handle at his age that entire scope. We're about to get to spring and then the dog days of summer, and so my brain agrees, but my brain also says I want to see how he handles. The adversity of our league is different than most leagues around the world.
Yeah, I think for me that's always been the cautious optimism about this Lionel Messi experiment, is how well it'll go throughout the stretch of an entire season, not just half a season, because as you said, the 3 different time zones. And yeah, you get that a little bit in Champions League play. You're going all over Europe, but this is week in and week out, different elevations, different time zones, different climates. It's a lot to take in, especially at the age that some of those guys are on in Miami. But moving on to other discussions from this last weekend, San Jose taking down LAFC 3-1. I think that's probably, for me, John, the most surprising result of the weekend.
Yeah, I never bet on MLS, kids. Don't do it. Don't try it. Don't try to. Even Vegas can't do this. What are you going to predict in this league? That was one of those scores, and this happens, 50 times a year in MLS. You look at it and you go, I don't think that's right. I see that score, but I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure my app has that backwards, because I don't think that's San Jose only allowed one goal in a game. I can't even fathom that.
Yeah, it was a big result. I mean, obviously they're. I think John's right. I did. It's weird. I think it was last week they had the almost comeback against the Galaxy. If my brain's trying to think about if that was, and that might have helped them kind of maybe feel like they could start to battle and get some points at home and start to maybe play better on the road. So maybe there's some confidence they got from that loss against the Galaxy where they almost came back. And it's it's been a tough run for San Jose. So this will be a big couple of weeks to see if they can follow up with more points. And again, to John's point, going into that, I think that might expose LAFC is not as dominant as they have been in the past, dropping points like that to a team that low in the standings.
I think on the broadcast, Dan and I were talking before in the pre-match show in our look across the league segment, and we were talking about that one. He goes, "You don't really need to watch that one. We already know the result of that game going in." And when we did the first scoreboard update, I think it was San Jose up 1-0 or something at the time, and I can't remember the exact sequence of events, but I just remember looking at the score. I'm like, "Wait, hold on, Dan. I think MLS's site is messing up here. This doesn't seem right." San Jose is kind of all over LAFC right now, and it's a shocking result there. So yeah, John, you were going to say something.
That game was at Levi's Stadium, right? That was at the 49ers Stadium. Maybe that's the secret. San Jose needs to play in a 65,000 seat stadium.
They got to harness their every game's a Classico then for them. It's
What do you call their rivalry with Austin when they play that one? We got to come up with a name for that one.
By the way, I saw that you guys had talking about the Cincy Columbus, and I'm going to challenge John to come up with a bet. I don't like the hell is real. Like it doesn't.
You don't?
No, I don't.
Oh man, I love it.
It's such a niche thing to know that there's a billboard that says that in between Cincinnati and Columbus.
Okay, so you guys just helped me out. I didn't realize that it was based on that.
Yes.
A billboard. Okay,
I'm pretty sure that's the reason. I have that right? Kyle here is nodding, so I
think that's right. Yeah,
good. That makes me feel better about it. That makes me feel like okay, there's something to it. So
going back to our conversation earlier this season, I like that name a lot better than El Trafico. So I'm just gonna stick that flag there.
I love El Trafico.
Oh man,
and
I'm outnumbered on this podcast.
I love it even more because LAFC fans. There's a certain segment of LAFC fans, at least, that hate it, which makes me like it even more.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You're gonna have to take it now, LAFC fans.
It's perfect name.
So if you tell me that Cincinnati and Columbus fans don't like calling it Hell is Real, then I'm absolutely on board with it. Best name for
If that's the same LAFC segment of LAFC fans that are still confused why LAFC gave up on Chicho Arango, then you can firmly plant me in that group of fans, because Chicho Arango keeps scoring. 1-0 win for RSL last weekend against Sporting Kansas City. Now up to 10 goals, tied with Messi and Suarez at the top of the league. And man, what a signing. And I know we say this every week, but what a signing Chicho Arango has been for Real Salt Lake. Scored a number of goals last year for them and just keeps continuing to do it and putting himself in. I know Messi's going to run away with the MVP conversation, but if Real Salt Lake keeps sticking at the top of the Western Conference solely because Chicho Arango just continues to bag goal after goal, that's an impressive signing for Real Salt Lake, Manny.
Yeah, my view is Chicho Arango doesn't happen without their commitment to defend and their commitment to be organized and structured. And I think this is the best opportunity that every Minnesotan's talking about defense this week because of not soccer, but basketball and the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I had to get that in the podcast. But we're talking about how good the Timberwolves are defensively. And then we blow into talking about how amazing Edwards is going to the hoop and attacking the basket. And similarly with Chicho Arango, I think Real Salt Lake starts with the fact that they're defending really well. And Chicho Arango now will get a couple chances a game and will finish. And so that mixture of those two is really, really dangerous for the Western Conference right now. And for us when we go out there in September. Because they are playing really balanced soccer with a great finisher and goal scorer.
John?
I think the best part for me and probably for a lot of MLS fans about Chicho Arango going to Real Salt Lake is that now almost everyone in the league has a Real Salt Lake player they can confidently name. You know what I mean? Every other year, it's like, well, they're third in the West, and you look at their starting lineup, it's like, I'm not sure. I think these guys are all new this week.
We going back to the Kyle Beckerman era because that
was exactly. It was Kyle Beckerman, and then it's up to Chicho Arango, and in between, it's just it's nothing but Jasper Leffelsen's all the way down. You know what I mean?
There's a poll, Jasper Leffelsen, man. That leads us kind of into the defensive conversation that you were starting there, Manny. Leads us right into our conversation about the game in Atlanta for Minnesota this weekend, and the defense that was on display for Minnesota, really stifling Atlanta through probably about the 80th minute. It felt like Atlanta didn't really pose that big of a threat to Minnesota, and over the last 10 minutes, as I believe you called it, the no tactic zone, John, in one of your articles this week. It just kind of became crazy after that. But Minnesota's defense and how they set up Manny, I thought that was as impressive of a performance as we've seen this season. There's been a lot of them, but I really was impressed with how they set up defensively.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should have been impressed seeing it live and seeing the kind of, I want to say kind of intense kind of focus I think Atlanta had going into the game, that they felt like they needed 3 points and they needed to get off on the front foot. And the fact that the game started and there was really nothing much in the first half besides the great chance that Dane had the great save on with Almada's service and Giamakis, it was an outstanding defensive performance. Not just from not giving up chances, but just really not allowing them to play with a tempo where they could get into the game and get waves of attacks, when I think their game plan was getting on the front foot against us. So that 5-4-1 maybe didn't allow us to get numbers forward the way you maybe always would want. But on the road against a team that, like I said, I think their game plan was to overwhelm us, and they just couldn't. We just had great shape. We really controlled the tempo ourselves and led us to a couple chances in the first half, but maybe not dominating, but allowed us to build into kind of having the second half we did. So spot on. It was really, really a really good first half defensively, and just complete first half for the group.
Don?
Yeah, talking about defense, there have been games this year that we in the media have really given a lot of credit to Eric Ramsey for doing something tactically excellent. Looking at a game like this one, coming out in a 5-4-1 on the road in MLS it's I said somewhere else, it's not really outside the box thinking. That's just sort of the box itself. You know what I mean? But there's a reason that everyone knows that's a game plan on the road, and MLS teams still pretty often lose on the road. Executing it is the difficult thing. And like you said, not only executing it, but then giving up sort of a late goal and then executing it for the final 15 minutes. I thought that was the particularly impressive part, just to keep your heads, stay with the game plan, and the team pulling out the 3 points. I thought that was the impressive thing in that game.
Yeah. I think the first half really led to, I think, us, being a little bit sharper offensively in the second half and starting to create some chances, and obviously the goals and where we won the ball for the second goal. And I think you bring up that last 10 or 15 minutes, it's weird. Obviously, it would have been a great day if we'd kind of finished out a 2-0 comprehensive kind of win on the road. But looking back now, and even if we got in a tie, the group having to go through a little adversity of that kind of chaotic defending, and instead of it being tactical, being more just individual fight and grit for those last 10 minutes was really impressive to see. And I think a great learning curve for some of the younger guys that have to kind of fight in these environments to win sometimes. So it was really enjoyable to see that have to for the guys to go through that. But again, in a weird way, I think I'd have been okay with a tie just based on how well we kind of navigated the challenges of that environment. And then they certainly the group deserved the win. I mean, we really went there and to me, did a better job than most teams do in Atlanta, which is a really tough place to play.
I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but I think thinking back on that match, if you don't have the first 45 minutes that this team had defensively, just sitting back in that 5-4-1, as you pointed out, that you don't sneak out of that 10-minute. I don't want to say sneak out. That's not the right term. You don't get out of that 10 minutes, the final 10 minutes with the win. You probably give up 2 goals there because you build that confidence. They built up that confidence in that first half with how they played defensively. And it felt like that continued to grow. And as we talked, we kind of mentioned about the Timberwolves defense, you've seen that confidence in their ability to play defense grow no matter who the opponent was. And man, does Atlanta have some attacking talent in Giacomakis and Almada. And you guys mentioned the delivery that Almada put in that first half to Giacomakis, and what a delivery that was. But you don't have that confidence in that final 10 minutes after you've given up the goal to have the lead if you don't put in that first 45 minutes. And I think that was very impressive for me, Manny.
Yeah, it really was. I think we talked a little about the tactics in the group. I think going to individuals. It was a fun, great performance again. Curvin defensively and got the goal. Certainly, I thought DJ's 1v1 defending was really good. Obviously, there might be some people that were frustrated with the foul at the end to kind of fight through the last minutes, but I thought his 1v1 defending was outstanding. And but really for me, I think in probably consistently this year, and it's nice to see him maybe give what I give my man of the match was Will Trapp. I think obviously the Tani goal was amazing, but I thought Will really not only embraced the defensive side and not only embraced, but he embraced it by defending Almada very far away from the goal, which really meant a lot to us recovering and keeping our shape. And it really took Almada out of his game. I mean, he decided to kind of dribble 60, 70 yards from goal. That's awesome. I mean, that happened several times. And it was fun to see Will get down low and make it tough for him to beat him. And sometimes he will. I mean, Almada's quick and fast, but Will didn't have any kind of any self-doubt about I'll get down low again and keep going at him and make sure it's hard to get by. So I thought he did a really, really good job of leading the team, both on moving the ball and making good decisions offensively, and then defensively, I thought he was lights out.
And then before we get to you, John, I want to ask you this question because you wrote about this week in the tactics, and Manny, you kind of started that conversation. Curvin Arriaga, what he did and how Eric Ramsey deployed him this week has been kind of the talk of what is one of the main points of what they did on Saturday against Atlanta. So, John, why don't you break down what you saw, and then Manny respond to that, because I thought what Curvin Arriaga did throughout that match was impressive, and how they used him, changed it up a little bit from the normal, I guess, 5-4-1 that you would see, and gave it a little wrinkle that really kind of threw Atlanta for a loop a little bit.
Yeah, I obviously other people know this better than I do, but you sort of based on what I saw, he's playing as a right center back, and obviously that has a little more on the ball responsibilities than maybe the center guy in that back three. But the thing they seemed to be doing that was particularly interesting was moving them up the field to try to win some of the goal kicks. And I know I've been talking to people, and I wrote a little bit about that they're going with sort of the long ball, especially against a team like Atlanta that wants to press and wants to get up there. And so I thought it was sort of an interesting wrinkle that they introduced, and a lot of fans have pointed this out on Twitter too, just to note that they're trying to use him as a guy who can win the ball, and again use that skill set that he has sort of developed his winning balls as not only as a center back but as a central midfielder, to try to move that up a little bit and say, all right, we're not necessarily going to push this guy forward, but we're going to push him forward when we're going to try to get the ball forward and get it over the halfway line.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. We've seen 3 straight games where he's really said just played that right center back, and he's getting more and more confident. John, to your point, I think he's great at 1v1 long ball situations just because he's kind of a 2-footed jumper. His goal was a 2-footed jump, which is not always the case. And sometimes you run that near post, you go off 1 foot, but he's really comfortable off 2 feet. So he gets up great. I think I told someone this, and I think he's going to have a good day on set pieces eventually here, because he really is got good timing with 2 feet. And I just think he's added a lot of athleticism. He's added that kind of the diagonal ball, which he didn't quite pull off, but it still allows us to battle for the second ball or goes out for a throw-in for us. So he's added a wrinkle both on offense and defense in a way that we haven't seen. And then I also think, on the other side, Tapias was just calm, and Devin, Devin's still getting to know where his strengths and weaknesses are. And there was a couple moments where he might have gotten a lot of position, and every time he did, Tapias was right there. So there was a really nice flow to the back line. And then you throw in Boxall, and it's funny, Giamakis really got heated throughout the game because of frustrating. They couldn't get their getting heated against Boxall is kind of comical because he just kind of like yawns at somebody. He's just so big and strong, but he doesn't lose his cool. And that was fun to watch. Giamakis really got heated, and Boxall didn't faze him at all. So my point is that back five was outstanding. They just were, and they all brought a different skill set to the day to try to handle Atlanta's kind of attack.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
I want to ask a question as someone who has never gone up to try to win a set piece at the top level. What is the difference between being a 1-footed jumper and a 2-footed jumper? I'm curious about what the difference between those things are.
I mean, this is maybe more of a Manny Lagos moment than like a but having played basketball, I was more of a 1-footed jumper. So I tended to try to get to the front post where, you're kind of timing as a 2-footed jumper when the ball's floating higher in the air. It's almost like in rebounding, it's a little bit different how you time the jump. It just seems like Kervin's really comfortable when he floats to that far post versus running to the near post. If he ran the near post instead of going to goal, I think he'd try to flick it more. So it's just where he ended up, where the cross was, feels like it's a perfect space for him for 2-footed jumping. So, yeah, that's it.
Thanks. So some of us need these things explained a little slower. So
It was also smart of Arriaga to post up on the guy who's 5'5" when he's 6'3" on that corner kick and kind of just jump over him. You look back at the replay and Mayumba kind of realizes that Arriaga's right behind him and he's jumping like, I don't have the ups to get up that high and stop him. But excellent once again for Minnesota on the corner kicks. Now it's 3 games in a row where they've scored off the corner kick. And I don't think that's something Loons fans have been often used to over the past couple of years. Manny, what's been working for them on the corner kicks and the set pieces this season that I guess hasn't in the past?
I haven't like dove into like analytically looking at it or even looking at I would say some of the runs seem hard. They seem like the guys are getting to their spots that they probably practiced and planned on, which then creates space for other guys. So I do think I'm enjoying the guys who are taking the services. I think that lines up with their technical qualities. Sometimes, you want a guy to be good at corners and they just aren't, we all have our opinions. Sometimes I'm not like a Pulisic corner kick guy. I hope he takes him really well, by the way, if he plays the Nationals and does it. But like, I always feel like I think he's got better skill sets than our corner kick taking. So I think there's a nice mixture here when Robin and Sang and Joseph, I think have been the primary three, if I can recall, and their technical side of just whipping those balls in and the guys hungry to get to spots has really created a lot of chaos for the opposing teams.
Yeah, it's certainly been fun to watch that development this season on the corner kicks. Another guy who had another impressive performance. Tanny Time continues to show up week in and week out. I know he's getting a lot of the credit for the goal that he scored because long range effort, those take a lot of skill and well done by him. I think a lot of that credit should also go to Carlos Harvey, who had an excellent interception that led to that goal. His interception about the halfway line led to that quick turnover and got it into Tanny, who hit a clean strike, but excellent overall play on that second goal from Minnesota, John.
Yeah, it's funny. It seems looking from the outside that Oluwaseyi right now is almost reaching like heat check territory. Like every time I kick the ball, it goes in the back of the net. Why wouldn't I shoot from 30 yards away and trying to take 2 more touches? Why shouldn't I just let this fly and see what happens? It always ends up in the back of the net. So
yeah, I think the strike by Tani was so clever because I think the expected goals in that situation probably is pretty low. But if you dissect the play, we just scored a few minutes earlier, and usually you absorb a lot of kind of momentum by their team to get back in the game, and they didn't really have a lot. And so the shape of our team in that moment where Jordan had the ability to step up is because they kind of didn't have a lot of solutions to play out. And I think it was a great play by Jordan to recognize that and go win that battle in the midfield. And then they were out of shape. And I think I mentioned something. I think Tani's cleverness was that I think he saw Guzan was a little bit out of position and backing up still. And so it didn't allow Guzan to have the power to dive and make the save. And it was just a really clever finish. Again, there's times where you might think, I'm going to take a couple more touches to see if another player opens up or if I can then shoot a little bit closer. So credit to Tani. You mentioned the heat check time. When you're doing that, you're seeing the game 3 or 4 plays in advance and just crushing it. So it was an outstanding goal. And again, it was nice to see Jordan kind of contribute defensively to that goal.
Yeah, I mean, he's 23, but that's the play of a guy who scored 16 goals last year and is like, you know what? When I shoot, things go well. So he's got that confidence, and for a young guy, that's not always the case, but he's making it happen right now.
So as a coach, then Manny, when you have a striker on this much of a heater as Tanny is over the past, I guess, season and a half at this point, what's the key to managing that and keeping that going instead of seeing it trail off, seeing confidence dip when goals don't go in for a game? What's the key to keeping the positivity and the mindset going for Tanny?
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't think it's like a basketball player where it's like just keep chucking him up and it'll go again. I think Tani's still at a development stage where there's so many elements of the game as a forward that you've got to, embrace the defensive shape work he's going to have to continue to build and grow. The work rate of 90 minutes, the hold up play, the kind of run in the channels, running between the two forwards. So I think there's all these elements where it's just keep going. It's just keep pushing yourself to become a well-rounded, dangerous forward in all areas, along with this great goal scoring, and think good things will happen. Because to your point, he's still growing into what he can become, which is exciting. But you'd also want to make sure he understands and realizes that all of this develops into somebody who's going to have to put the work in and week out to continue to add all those elements to the team to have the team playing well, so he can have the chance of scoring, which is why this forward position in modern day soccer is insanely hard. I mean, you are doing all those elements, expected to score, but also expect to work defensively, also expect to hold the ball up, also expected to run the channel, and then that first line of defense again. So in the end, though, I will say it's a joy to watch him both embrace coming off the bench, embrace with enthusiastically, and embrace when he starts to try to make an impact in the game. It's just been really fun to see him, kind of, I thought John put it best, an extension of what he did last year in USL, essentially.
Yeah, he's been excellent, John.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. It's fun to have young players that are fun to watch, I think, for fans. And I think it's true in soccer, but it's true everywhere. Like, if a guy's doing this and he's 32, it's exciting. When he's 23, it's like, wow, this is the future right here. It's why baseball fans are always more excited when a guy comes up from the minors. It's just it's exciting to. It's almost like you're in on the ground floor as a fan, that you're in with this guy as he's getting his career started. And so I think it's fun. He's an enthusiastic guy. He really seems to play the game with a lot of joy and enthusiasm, and it's just fun, I think, for fans to be a part of.
Another young kid we've seen kind of develop this season, Manny, you mentioned him a little bit ago, Devin Padelford. He moved from center back out to left wing back today or last week, and Josef Rosales moved up into midfield due to some injuries, and Miguel Tapias returning, meaning Devin Padelford kind of moved outside. What did we think of those two guys' game? Rosales in the midfield, and then Padelford out at the left wing back this week. Manny.
I think Joseph was super solid. I mean, again, I think it's the first time he's playing left midfield or left like winger, or what I'm going to say, besides wing back or left back. And I think Joseph excelled at those two positions. And I just thought he was really, really solid. Again, he kind of helped create the shape for that 5-4-1. And I do think, again, like we talked about, I'm not sure how the game would have flowed if we'd gotten scored on first and how we would have had to evolve out of that to get numbers forward. But in this system, he did outstanding there, where maybe we didn't have to find the offense as quickly, or as because we weren't down. And then, so it's just great. I mean, nothing to say. He's so clever. He gets the game. He can hold the ball. He gets fouled. He gets throw-ins. He gets forward. He's done a great job. And I can't say enough about Devin's athleticism, his kind of growing into the game, and growing into, even within a game, I thought he kind of got turned around a few times in that first half where, as an outside back, his feet work were a little clunky. That even led to the Lamada chance that one time. And there was a couple times he didn't quite have his shoulders right to maybe get the ball in behind him. But as the game went on, he just keeps on fighting through that and showing a resilience that is really cool. He's not acting like a young player when he has some mistakes early in the game. He just seems to kind of keep going and keep making it athletic for the right ways, where the opposing player gets worn down. And I think that's why I wanted to give a shout out to Tapias. We don't talk about him a lot because he's just so steady and smart. Yeah. And he really, I thought, helped Devin through that game a little bit in terms of just making sure when we did get a little bit stretched or out of position, or Devin did, he was right there. And that really elevated Devin's game as well.
I don't think I've seen a heat map from the game, but I would have to imagine, John, that Josef Rosales' heat map was just one big red blob all over the entire field where he was showing up.
It's not a heat map. It's just a picture of the field, like a picture of Atlanta Stadium.
Just turned red.
This is where Josef Rosales played on Saturday.
Him and Songbin Jung, they were kind of all over the place and where they played.
What position did they play in? Soccer. They played soccer on Saturday. There was no position to it. No, I think that's the impressive thing about Rosales. We sort of talked a lot about the flexibility of players and the flexibility that Eric Ramsey is putting people out there. But I think it's a big deal. Even, Rosales has played sort of left midfield and even left winger in past seasons. But to be able to play left back, he had a game against Charlotte where he was sort of defensively playing left back and then offensively playing left midfield. In this game, he really was playing opposite as Sang-Min Jong as the left winger. And to be able to do all of those things effectively, I thought that was impressive. I didn't think Padelford had a very good game. We sort of alluded to that. He did not play real well. And I do think it's funny to look at that because 6 weeks ago, if this was Padelford's first MLS start, it'd be like, yeah, he's a really young player, is playing left back for the first time. This is what you would expect seeing him play against Thiago Almada and going against these guys. But then he played so well at center back. It's like the question is flipped from, well, can Devin Padelford really make it happen as a center back? And then, he plays as the left center back in a back four and a back five. It all goes really well. He makes the team of the week. And now, like after 1 week, it's like, I don't know. Can Devin Padelford play as a fullback in this league? I guess we'll have to find out. So you sort of mentioned he's a really young player. He's even younger than Oluwaseyi. So I think it's interesting to see a guy who's not only a local guy, but just to see him sort of learn in real time. I think if you asked him, he would not say that Saturday was his best game. So
certainly nice to learn in real time, not have your best game and win in Atlanta, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a nice mix.
And to keep some of the most dangerous attackers in this league off the board for the most part for much of that match. I mean, with the way the defense played, Thiago Almada, yeah, he had 5 key passes in the match, but for the most part, I don't remember outside of the excellent delivery into Giacomakis, I don't remember many times that Dan called his name on the broadcast. I don't remember many times being fearful that he was going to put in a dangerous chance or put in a dangerous ball other than the final free kick of the match. This defense did a really good job of shutting down one of the more dangerous attacking units in this league, Manny.
Jonathan, I think that's why I have my Will Trapp right there as my man of the match, because I think it's exactly right. Will sprayed the ball great, made great decisions offensively with how we're going to move the ball, the tempo of the game that we needed to play, which wasn't as fast as normal. We knew that. And then defensively, I think he really embraced, making it a hard day for Thiago Almada to be impactful, and really did a great job of it.
So then let's break it down. We've already broken down Minnesota's performance. We've now seen Atlanta, and we've seen how they've struggled of late. What's been their problem, I guess, from what you could see over this last weekend, from what you've seen this weekend, John?
Well, it seems like at this point of the season, Atlanta 2024 is a little like Minnesota 2023, where you look at all the underlying numbers and you're like, yeah, this is a really good team. The ball won't go in the back of the net somehow. I don't know why the ball won't go in the back of the net, but it just, the underlying numbers say they're good. And that goes for all of the numbers, but somehow the ball just won't end up in the back of the net. I think you saw that, like, yeah, the chance early in the game, the header is down into the ground right at Dane St. Clair. Or I can't remember if it was down in the ground. Maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
But either way, it's right at Dane St. Clair. It's, a good save, but not the hardest save he's going to make all season. And I think it's just the moments like that where it's coming up short for Atlanta. And I think, near as I can tell from reading about them, they're as confused as anybody about why the ball just won't go in the net right now.
They've got the players to put it in the back of the net.
Yeah, I think one of the awesome things about this sport is the expecting to win versus executing to win. And you have to do both. You have to create that belief and confidence in a group to win, but that's only half the battle. You actually have to go on the field and then in real time solve the adversity of whatever hits you that day. And I just think that's where, it's a build up thing that's tough. I think there's a lot of stress in Atlanta to be a top team in the East. And the East is very competitive this year, which adds to the stress, which adds to meaning expectation and execution side don't always align the way you want to. It's early in the season though, so if those underlying numbers are what they are, there could be a recalibration, or they could lose some confidence and not pick up points the way they probably should.
So then, before we move on to our preview section of the show, let's get final thoughts. Anything we may have missed in our conversation, John? I'll start with you.
I do have to say that in terms of being a writer who's writing for a newspaper and is on deadline, I really would have appreciated not giving up that second goal, because that, just personally speaking, and I know you guys aren't coaching the team, but I feel like I have a lifeline here. If you could not do that and make deadline easier, that would be a lot helpful. Very helpful. Thank you.
My final thoughts are just little bit like, the surrealness of the run the Timberwolves are going through right now, and it may or may not continue, but we have to pay homage to this players and the staff and the run we're on right now, and the 2 away wins in a row, and just going to Atlanta and winning in a way that we did, that was very much deserved. It's such a fun moment for the club right now. It's early. We're about to hit the spring and dog days of the summer, where we really have to build into what kind of group we're going to be for the rest of the year. So by no means are we anywhere where we should, not be complacent, but we should also really celebrate as a club the performance that these guys put in a tough place to usually play for any team in this league. So it was a really good night all around.
Yeah,
Manny,
absolutely.
I love that you keep bringing this back to the Timberwolves. It's like it's like everybody else in the state right now, where you're just grabbing a random passerby on the street and being like, "Hey, what about Nickeil Alexander-Walker?
What about Naz Reid? Come on, we got to talk about Naz Reid.
Yeah, I mean, I brought up his towel in the Wonderwall last time, so there's that as well. So, I'll keep him going, John. We got the Galaxy now. I'm sure I can figure it out somehow.
Forget the Galaxy. Let's talk Timberwolves for the remainder of this podcast. I don't think anybody who's listening, sorry about this, but we're going to talk. I want to talk about Naz Reid's post defense against the Colts. That's what I'm
Didn't
really.
Know he had it in him. Didn't know he had it in him.
I don't think any Minnesota sports fan is gonna get sick of talking about their teams being really stinking successful and being talked about as maybe the championship contender for this season. I don't think any Minnesota sports fans will ever get sick of that for a long time. So,
hey, if we want connection, by the way, Jaden McDaniel and Sonny Dotson, same high school, same neighborhood. I think Sonny's a little bit older, so he went with his brother. But there's a nice connection there. And then you
go away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not maybe the best neighborhood in the Seattle area.
No.
There we go. There's our Wolves connection for today.
There we go.
There we go. That's all we came for. That's all Minnesota sports fans came for to this podcast, was how we were going to connect us to the Minnesota Timberwolves' success in their playoff run.
And talk about hometowns. We're just hometowns for the rest of the podcast.
As the official healthcare provider of Minnesota United, Allina Health is responsible for keeping our Loons ready for game day with industry-leading sports medicine and orthopedic care. But our award-winning care does not stop there. Because true well-being requires good physical and mental health, the mental health team at Allina is also there for you, with a variety of programs and services featuring more than 300 mental health professionals. Allina Mental Health Services helps ensure you stay at the top of your game. Talk to your healthcare provider or call the Mental Health and Addiction Connection line, 866-603-0016, for any mental health service, question, or concern 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Well, the win at the weekend puts Minnesota up to 20 points, 2 points per game this season. That leads the Western Conference, though Real Salt Lake, because they have played one more game than Minnesota, sit atop the Western Conference on 21 points. That'll be a 2-game. Minnesota will have 2 games in hand after this weekend, since they don't play this weekend. But the Loons' next opponent, LA Galaxy, sit right below them in the standings, 19 points, 1.73 points per game. They've been an interesting team, boys. This is a hard team to figure out for many reasons. They had a good run of form. They won 4 out of 5 games, but then followed it up with a 2-0 stinker to Austin, and then a 0-0 kind of fairly ho-hum draw against Seattle last week. What do we think about the LA Galaxy coming into this midweek match next week, Manny?
Interesting. Last night, I went down a whole of MLS Classic games, and I watched the Zlatan 4-3 game.
Cool.
I don't know why I just was there. But I think it was probably a little bit is like, this is the Galaxy trying to get out of that mode in terms of maybe not getting the huge, just one superstar Zlatan, but like trying to spend real money on maybe players a little bit in their prime, or maybe just a little bit outside of their prime in terms of Pansel and Peck is young. So like, I think this has been probably their most exciting start in a long time to their fan base. I think they've shown some really good quality, particularly the front four. Ricky Puig has been unbelievable, but they still seem to maybe, not. So I think they've given up 17 goals, which is still, somewhere where they're going to have to figure out how to have the balance of being good defensively and then have that front four kind of go and score goals. So for me, it's an interesting team where they're still trying to find their way. And I actually think that was a good result in Seattle. So 0-0 on the road in Seattle. Seattle just beaten Philadelphia. We're looking to try to get back on track for the season. So I think it's be a fascinating game for us to really navigate where we're at. We're on a really good run. We're playing against a really good team. We know they're going to be good offensively. So we're going to have to be organized and compact and structured. And then obviously to win games, you got to score goals. So I'm excited to see how we are performing against, on paper, one of the better teams in the West.
John, your thoughts on the Galaxy?
Well, you said they're confusing this season. How many seasons in a row has this been for the Galaxy being the most confusing team in the league? Like every time you see it,
5.
it's like, well, they got a lot of really good players, and I just looked at their results, and they've lost 7 games in a row. That can't be right? I don't think that's right. And exactly, like, you look at the results and see that they lost by 2 goals to Austin. And how did any team give up 2 goals to Austin? I didn't think that was possible this season. So I don't know. It's like the last time Minnesota fans saw him at the end of last year. They had something to play for. They came to Allianz Field and Teemu Pukki scored 11 goals or whatever it was. Like, where did that come from? That's the kind of thing the Houston Dynamo do. That's Houston Dynamo behavior right there. That's not what you expect out of the Los Angeles Galaxy. So I don't know. You can look and you can say that Paintsil has been a great acquisition for him, and he's sort of defining what it means to be a winger that changes games a little bit with some of the runs he makes and stuff. And yet, who knows what you're going to get from him?
Yeah. No, it's really where their identity of their defensive identity, I think, creates that chaos a little bit, John, where you don't know if they're going to have a good defensive game or bad. And I think, again, our consistency defensively has been outstanding this year. It's been really kind of whether it's our central midfield defending or whether it's our back line, really sets a tone for us. I think, whereas I still think the Galaxy's building into that. I do think on a personal level, seeing Ricky Puig, if he plays live, is really, he's different. He breaks lines differently. He sees the game differently. He's got a body type that, he tucks his shirt in, which I love that, that's like you said, that's how I used to play growing up. And then it wasn't. And now when guys do it, it looks a little weird and it looks like he's unathletic and like, is he a soccer player? And then he's just got this great skill, great vision, and can really hurt teams going forward. He might be part of their issues defensively, but he really does, live. I think I'm really excited to see that quality of player and that quality of kind of Barcelona upbringing that he has.
Yeah. Does the 4th official still make you tuck your shirt in when you go onto the field? That used to be a thing. That doesn't happen anymore?
No, it does not happen anymore. Yeah. So, I mean, we might have a couple. Bongi's tried to bring out the tuck shirt a couple times. Corey Hayes did it.
Yeah.
Corey Hayes was a big shirt tuck in guy. He was
every time
that looked like his shirt was an extra tall, and somehow he tucked it in anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shout out to Corey Hayes getting his master's in some high level science that will break my brain if I try and even think about or try and understand it. So shout out to him to be able to do that while having a professional soccer career. Amazing accomplishment.
The only one who can understand the Galaxy. He's the only one.
It's the shirt tuck. That's what it is. Tuck.
Yeah. We needed him on the show to kind of explain it in science terms.
Somebody call him. Let's get him in here right now.
I'll see what I can do. But as you mentioned, Manny, the Galaxy, to be fair to them, they were without 4 of their key starters last week against Seattle and came out with a 0-0 draw. You'll never turn down a point in Seattle, as Loons fans will know from their time against Seattle and playing in Seattle. You will always take that point. So it's a good result for them, but it just looks in stark contrast to how they were performing just a couple games ago. And as you said, Ricky Puig, he is the man for LA Galaxy. They did get significantly younger by selling off or by seeing Chicharito leave the door, by Billy Sharp leave out the door as well. A couple plus 30-year-old forwards leave out the door. They bring in, as you said, Peck, who's 23, Paintsil, 26. They've been spearheaded by Ricky Puig, 24. So there clearly has been this shift to youth in the attack, and it's helped him out this season, Manny.
No, I think it's been really exciting, and again, I'm really excited to see how we handle that really good front four that they play with. If Jovic is back as well, it's a tough front four to handle, and I believe in our club. I believe in the way our guys are playing, and I think it's going to be an exciting game. I mean, I think to me, it's one of the must-watch games of the week, so to speak. I know it's not a weekend game, but just because those guys have such great quality, and we've been outstanding in the midfield and on defense. So to me, it's a really a big one for us. It's a big one for the club.
The problem for the Galaxy has been
this is MLS. I just want to say we've been talking a lot about defense, and this is MLS, so it's going to be 8-6 one way or the other. I don't know how, but it's going to be.
It's going to be 8-6 because the Galaxy have struggled on defense this year. How much do you guys think that is down to having the very veteran center backs of Caceres and Yoshida, 35 and 37 between the both of them? That's a lot of veteran know-how in the center back pairing. But when you have guys on the other side in Sangbin Yang and Taniela Wache who are running at you, that's as tough of a competition as you can get when you're at that age in this sport, John.
Well, I mean, if you're going to talk about old center backs, I don't think Minnesota has a leg to stand on there. So
that's fair.
None of the Galaxy center backs are older than their coach, is all I got to say. So
touche. I guess I can't go on with that conversation.
You can, Jonathan. Don't back down so quickly.
Fight me.
Yeah. Get after him a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's the Minnesota in me. I can't fight someone on anything. But yeah, Boxy, I think you got me there on the Boxy situation. But the rest of the center backs from Minnesota, the rest of the back line, a little bit younger than what LA Galaxy are putting out. Yeah, Jalen Neal had a good game against Seattle last week, filling in. He'll probably get the start again this week.
Is he 20 or 21?
Jalen Neal is 20. He'll be 21 at some point or later on this year. But yeah, he's a 20-year-old kid who had a good game against a tough opponent, generally a tough opponent, but he'll probably get the start this weekend. It's a tough game for them, for the Galaxy this weekend, Real Salt Lake. Manny, what's been the key to their defensive problems this season?
Oh, I mean, you're talking about the Galaxy?
Yep.
I mean, they give up too many goals, but just being honest.
Hold on. I got to get my notebook out. I want to
no, I like I said, I think the bigger picture is this sport is hard. It's hard when you're not scoring goals to find ways to score goals, and vice versa. It's not like you just say go play hard defense for 90 minutes, it'll be all fine. It really does take time to build in individually, collectively, how you're going to, the identity of your team's going to have that balance. And like I said, I think they're still in if you're looking at it from a league perspective, and again, my brain goes to our opponent next, I think there's been some probably over the top positive vibes for the Galaxy that they're a new Galaxy now because they've had a couple of really good games where, that only comes from the execution. The expectation's there now that the Galaxy's, at this level. And now the expectation is that they've got to kind of do it in the field. And I think you kind of brought it up. I think they haven't quite got yet what their best back four is, or who their back four with their defensive midfielders should be. And can they actually execute week in and week out and really not give up too many goals? So for me, like I said, it's a great challenge for us to keep this run we're going on and really believe in how we're going to approach them in that great attack defensively. It poses for a great match, and I'm not sure it's gonna be 8-6, and I'm not sure where it goes, but it certainly tells me that the Galaxy are still trying to find their identity defensively, based on their early season results.
We're gonna make you make some predictions later on. We'll get you to do predictions when we look ahead to this weekend's bout of games, but that does include that LA Galaxy Real Salt Lake match, which two top teams in the Western Conference. That's certainly going to play in Minnesota's advantage, that LA Galaxy have to play one of the top teams in the league, and Minnesota gets to sit at home and watch, won't it, Manny?
I mean, it should. I mean, now I'm going
to be a little bit fresher.
I mean, this is one of those ones where, the goal is almost like when you play down a man, you play harder. It depends on how our guys approach, not being complacent based on the fact that they probably know this team played 4 days earlier. So to me, it's a big management moment for us to kind of build in. And our guys really have to use that advantage, hopefully, to grow into the game and win. But certainly it's not quite as hard as, I think it's Wednesday or Saturday to Wednesday versus Saturday to Tuesday or Wednesday to Saturday. So It's a little bit more rest, 4 days versus 3. But let's get after it. I mean, again, as a Minnesota fan, it's a great opportunity for us to really push them, physically and mentally.
All right. So let's start making predictions here. Minnesota, as we said, are off this weekend. So all Minnesota fans get to either watch Nas Reed and the Timberwolves, or they can also watch some MLS action. There's plenty of it this weekend. And since we're not playing this weekend, we can make predictions on some of these games. Let's start off with the Hell is Real Derby. Who are we going with? What's the score line? I'll start with you, John.
Where's the game, Jonathan?
That one is, I believe, in Columbus.
I thought you were going to say that game is in hell.
I
was real.
I missed it.
I think Columbus is going to win this one just because they're flying right now. Wilfred Nancy is like, he's ascended from, this is a good young coach, to, I think this is maybe the best coach in MLS, to then they go down to Monterrey and win. And it's like, I think Wilfred Nancy is on a different plane. He might not be human. We need to check. So I think Columbus has got it flying right now. I think they win that one.
Manny?
I've got Columbus winning as well. Yeah. And for everything John just said there, and when is the final of the CONCACAF?
June 1st, I believe.
Okay. So they've got some time to breathe and get ready for this, the final. I'm there. I think Columbus right now is really class of the league. It's a great credit to us, by the way, that the point we got at home in a time when they were playing really well.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we had a great day, and so it's another example for us and our guys, and we should be really excited about where we played this year, because that was a really good game for us at home. And yeah,
I'm going to make Columbus fans nervous by going with the clean sweep. I think Columbus win it, and that always leads to the other team always winning it, because whenever the media decide that one team is going to win it, it always happens that the other team wins it. But I guess we did forget to mention that game down in Monterrey, 3-1 Columbus, because the nature of podcasts or our recording schedules, we recorded last time before that game had played. What an impressive game by Columbus to go down there, a tough environment, Manny, and get the win and lock up their place in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final. You can't, as you said, John, it's really a credit to what Wilfred Nancy has done to be able to go down into that tough environment and really just hammer the home team in a way that we rarely ever see MLS teams do.
Yeah, outstanding. I mean, literally outstanding. Incredible result considering they're the number 1 team in the region. They got the early goal. They were at home. And that group had to kind of figure out a way to kind of solve a lot of problems and adversity. And a great run. I think it sets up a really interesting final. Like I said, on paper, it's going to be interesting because I think a lot of people are going to pick Columbus as the favorite. And this Pachuca team has sneakily really done well and has some really good players. So I think it sets up a great final for 2 very even teams overall, by the way. I do think they're even. So it's going to be a really, really good matchup.
Manny, I want you to pick out who is the Pachuca of MLS. I'll put you on the spot.
I mean, I was thinking Philly, maybe.
That was good. That was what I was going to say. All right. This is great.
Yeah, I think it would be Philly. Yeah.
Like, not a big spending team, but they just develop and they just
pretty develop, and then they'll get like a Rondon and a veteran, and add that to the mix. So yeah.
All right.
I like it.
Columbus, Philly in the CONCACAF final.
What a day that would be! 2 MLS teams in the MLS or in the
I don't know.
CONCACAF
I don't know
Champions Cup
anything
final.
about Pachuca and cheesesteaks. I don't have any information about food down there.
Lost on me on that one. Let's get back to our predictions. LAFC, Vancouver. Vancouver at the top or near the top of the Western Conference. LAFC coming off that 3-1 loss to San Jose, a shock result there. Manny, I'll start here with you. Your prediction for that result, or for that game.
I just see where are they playing?
That one is LAFC, I believe.
All right, I'm going to take LAFC. Although I want to give a shout out to Vancouver's defense has been outstanding. Brian White has been just lights out in terms of forward and physical and movement and scoring, assisting. So there's no doubt I think Vancouver's in a great run of form. I just think LAFC is going to have some urgency and tempo to them based off of losing last week in San Jose. That'll be tough for Vancouver in LAFC to deal with that environment.
John?
Yeah, the easy thing I think here would be to pick draw, but I'm going to go with Vancouver just because LAFC's vibes are so weird. They're just so weird this year. I don't know. Usually it's like, well, LAFC won, a shocker, but this year it's just a strange team. So I say Vancouver steals that one.
I'm right there with you with Vancouver going on the road and taking that win for exactly the same reason. I can't figure out what this LAFC side is, and it's very rare since they've joined the league that you've had to say that is that you don't know one where the goals are going to come from. I mean, Denny Bouanga is hit or miss this season, and what they are as a team. It's very hard to figure out what they are. The final one that we'll pick out this week, Portland, Seattle, Cascadia Cup action. This one in Portland. Both teams desperately needing wins for very different reasons. John, we'll start with you.
I think Seattle is we've talked a lot about weird teams. It's just sort of a lot of weird teams in the Western Conference. But at some point, it's going to stop being true for Seattle that every week it's like, well, they're pretty good. They played pretty well and they lost. How did they lose again this week? I don't understand. So I think Seattle's going to win this one just because at some point they got to start winning. They beat Philadelphia. At some point they got to turn normal, right?
This is in Portland.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, both teams right now are in areas that I don't think a lot of people expected. So, I mean, is Portland like winless in 7 or 8? Seattle off to the slow start. I've got to pick a draw. But it's not going to be normal. It'll be a 1-1. But insane things will happen. You know, like a GM will get kicked out or something, or like
which GM? I want you to predict which GM is going to get thrown out of this game.
Well, I mean, there was the history of I think Gavin Wilkinson did 1 year years ago. But I don't know. That's a good question.
Which player is most likely to steal the referee's book and tear it up?
That would be I'm going to say 1-1 because I think the desperation's on both teams and that might equal it out to a tie.
Yeah, it's winless in 8 for Portland, but based off how this series has been played over the past couple of years, it's always the road team that finds a way to win, and no one's been able to explain that. So I'm going to continue that trend. I think Seattle wins based off of Portland being winless in 8, and then Seattle actually getting a couple wins of late and having some decent results for themselves. So I think Seattle's on the ascension while Portland is falling off from their lofty heights of 2 wins in their first 3 matches of the season, and people thinking Phil Neville is a good coach and is able to bring about this Portland return that he was brought in to do, and that's kind of fallen off of late. So difficult game there, and exciting one coming up on Sunday. But boys, this has been fun. Loons play next Wednesday at Allianz Field, 7:30 p.m. kickoff, 7 p.m. pre-match show with Dan Terra and myself on 1500 ESPN. You can watch that match on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Looking forward to it. Before we go, John, tell people where they can find you.
Right now I am subbing in for the Star Tribune and covering the Loons for them. So read the Star Tribune, read everything there. And otherwise you can probably find me on Twitter. I was saying to somebody else the other day, if I ever call it X, my body's been taken over by aliens to do something. I'm not going to call it X, but
I am the same exact way.
You can find stuff from there.
Absolutely. Good stuff this week. We'll talk to all you Loons fans next week. And we're looking forward to it, to the producing staff of Grace Dearson, Kyle Hayward, and Evan Antler. Thank you for putting this on every week. And Loons fans, we'll talk to you next week.